Greetings, fellow legacy changers. It's your main man, T-Rev, and it's time to connect good so we can collect good. This is Legacy Connect. So let's go, let's grow.
To be what you meant to be, it's never too late. That timely quote challenged me when
Welcome, everybody. You are about to get different. You are about to get better right now. You are about to launch on your trajectory is going to change today because I got someone special who can speak into your life. Trust me on that. I met this gentleman and we're going to dive in. If you want to sell better, you want to start a business, you want to chart your path better, stay tuned, stay in with me right now. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for a game-changing conversation with the one, the only, Parnell Woodard. I love that name. He's a seasoned leadership pro. He has helped countless dreamers pivot from corporate routines to thriving business ownership as a sought-after career ownership coach at the Entrepreneur's Source. I'm going to say that again, on the Entrepreneur's Source. Parnell, he believes every dreamer deserves a roadmap. Today, he's sharing the wisdom, mindset, and franchise expertise that have fueled his success. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. So stay with me. Welcome, Parnell. Let's dig in. How are you doing?
Thanks, T-Rev. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm
very kind intro. Thank you.
I try to make it that way, but you've earned that. You know, no fluff. You've earned it. I've been doing my background checking on you, and so I like this Legacy Connect. Just to set the premise here, the Bible says, "Don't let any idle word come forth out of your mouth. Whatever comes out of your mouth should be edifying for the hearer. Should build people up." And though this is business and let's grow, let's make money, I know that there's certain words of wisdom in that Bible, and I want to make sure people are fed. And no pressure on you, no pressure, but you've taught me some things. We've had some conversations, and I believe that you can uplift some people, help them get some breakthrough. And you have a very fascinating background, leadership, coaching. Guys, get coached, take leadership, be humble, take feedback. Can you tell us one pivotal moment from your journey that set you on a path to helping others find their entrepreneurial spark?
Yeah, well, I think some of that comes from the journey that I've had, T-Rev, in that I've been fortunate enough to build two companies from scratch. Both of which most people would consider to be successful exits. And I've also been a multi-unit franchisee. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, I've been very lucky to have done two different types of business ownership. And with regards to helping others find that spark, at some point, you reach an age where you look back on things and you're like, wow, I've been blessed to be able to do what I've done and build what I've built. And I just firmly believe that business ownership is the single best way for most people to accomplish their income, lifestyle, and wealth building goals. And when I realized that, I was like, I want to be able to bring these experiences to people and help them learn in a safe space about how to do that. Because so many people are so afraid of trying to get into business for themselves. And most of that fear just comes from a lack of information or not knowing what's really involved. 75% of adults think about going into business for themselves, but only 5% of people do it. And what I want to try and do is help close that gap, help people learn about what's involved. So there was a point probably after my third company where I was like, how can I help people learn about this? So that's how I got into it.
And you mentioned something. I deal with a lot of my audiences, sellers, account executives, CROs, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and Legacy Connect is all about helping people intentionally connect in every form, every facet. I believe that there's a sale to be made in everything in life, even when you a priest or a pastor trying to sell somebody their walk of faith so they can get into heaven, so to speak. So when you talk about, and I'm going to jump off from one of the questions and break off the path. But when you talk about, you believe that entrepreneurship and building business is, the greatest path for someone to see freedom. Who are you talking about? Do you see, what's that entry point? Who's qualified to do that? Is it sellers from corporate? Who's that ideal entrepreneur? What do you think is the base that they have to hop off of to enter in that, or is it someone who has to go to college?
It's funny because I think that there's kind of the typical one that we see where people are kind of frustrated with corporate America, right? They've reached a certain level in corporate America, maybe they're directors or VPs or something like that, and maybe they've gotten passed over, or they've been at the same company for 4, 5, 6 years. They've been in the same job for a few years, and they're just frustrated with corporate America. That's one audience. I tend to find they're middle-aged, 45-ish plus, and they really want to try and do something on their own. What's really interesting, though, T-Rev, recently is I'm seeing more and more millennials and Gen Zs come into entrepreneurialism because they've grown up when they have a very different perspective around corporate America. A lot of them are just not keen to it, and they really want to do their own thing and find a way into doing their own thing. So we're seeing more and more folks come into that entrepreneurial world in their 30s, late 20s, early 30s. And I think that's great. I started my first company at 35, and honestly, I probably should have done it sooner. So there's not really a typical one. And with regards to college education, I think it helps because I think it creates structure. It's a very structured learning path, whereas real world learning is a little bit more chaotic. But at the end of the day, it's still about the application of knowledge. So if you're really good at learning and applying that, I think you can be good at anything you put your mind to.
And I always ask that question within my family. So my wife has a college degree, her MBA, and it suited her. It's been a big blessing to our family, and it helped her to rise up corporate. Now she's big marketing guru for a pretty decent sized company here in Texas. I didn't go to college, and don't worry, your comment didn't make me tuck my tail and run, but I didn't go to college. So there's a happen. So I've been talking to my kids. Got 7 of them, but two of them are still like 14 and 17. So once we've been talking to them about college. I've been always of the mindset that I'll look at my kids and they'll say something like, one of them may say, I don't want to go to college. But the first thing I'm looking for is, are they self-driven? Do they have drive? Can you handle that? One of my kids didn't go to college, and he owns Legacy Caregivers, and I funded it, part owner, but he executed on it, and I go in and do the leadership coaching there. But he didn't go to college. First year in that business, he made $1 million. By his third year, he was making $3 million a year in that business. So he's done well. I could see in him that he had to sell drive. He would take a commission-only job in sales, work it for 2 years, and rise to the top. Made me very proud. Then I'll look at the others and say, not that if they don't have that self-drive, but they have certain talents that lend themselves to college. I'm like, hey, you need to go to college. I don't see you getting up at the butt crack of dawn and going out there and having that type of grit that it takes to be an entrepreneur. So there's that dilemma. What is your thoughts on that, and in your approach and your advice to people if they don't have a degree, or if they do?
I don't want to say that it's a precursor or a prerequisite to being successful as a business owner. I don't think that at all. Drive is really, really important. The one thing I would say to folks, especially when you have that level of drive and you have that level of motivation, which candidly I had in my 30s. That's what drove me to start my first company. But be smart enough, be humble enough to recognize that you don't know everything, and surround yourself with people that can help you. There's a great quote. I think it's Alex Hormozy. I'm butchering his surname. Hormozy. And he talks about, he talks about, don't listen to the people around you. Listen to the people where you want to go. And I think that's really good advice, because if you sit and surround yourself with people who are not doing what you want to accomplish, the counsel you're going to get from them is exactly that. If you want to go somewhere, go talk to people who've been there. Those are the people that are going to help you get there. So if you get into business by yourself or for yourself, whether you have a degree or you don't, be humble enough to recognize that you need people around you to help you succeed.
That's good. That's a good word. And you mentioned Alex Hormozy. Let's stay on some of these controversial topics real quick. And then I want to get some backdrop, because there's a path you took and there's a path you help people on. But let's stay on this, talking about the grind, the drive, the grit. Let's talk about work-life balance, no days off. I believe, and I don't want to misquote Alex, Hormozy. If I hope we're not butchering his name, but I see it all the time.
Apologies, Alex, if we are.
Yes, he's done a good job of building that brand up. But I heard that he has this, work till you drop, get up, butt crack of dawn, don't sleep is for suckers. And I'm not quoting him. I'm paraphrasing something that I've heard. So if that is true, what are your thoughts for the entrepreneur who does have to like go out there, shake hands, kiss babies, get his knees dirty? You do need to work, but what are your thoughts on that work-life balance? Is that the only way to make it in entrepreneurship?
No, and that's something that I learned firsthand with some painful results as well. My first company, when I was 35, I was very much of that mentality. It was 24/7, go where you had to go, be where you had to be. There was no off. When you're on vacation, your phone is constantly with you. You're addressing all of these issues. And part of that was just my lack of business maturity in terms of starting a business. My second company and my third company, in terms of effort put forward, was significantly less than my first company. And I think that's because I learned so much about how to better balance my time. And as I did that, I was able to really prioritize what needed to be done now and what could wait. The other thing I would say that I think is really important here too, T-Rev, is starting a business from scratch is very different than a franchise. From scratch, you're building everything from scratch. Operating procedures, marketing, brand, sales, the product or service, whatever it is, the business model, you've got to prove all that. There's a lot of work in just that alone. A franchise, a lot of that work is done for you. The business model is proven. The operational support is typically there. Marketing support is there. You've got a training team that's there. You've got all kinds of learning and a network of other franchisees that are there to help you succeed because they want you to succeed. They don't want to compete with you. So there's two very different approaches there. And what I would say to people is, if you want to work 24/7 and you want to build something from scratch, you can do that. If you want to build something that's your own and you want to look at a franchise, I don't think you have to work 24/7 to be successful in a franchised environment at all.
So you would tell people to look for a path, whether it's franchise or something else, to have work-life balance and not kill yourself.
Well, I think it depends on what your goals are, right? So a lot of the work I do with clients, we start with those goals. What are your income goals? What are your lifestyle goals? What are your wealth building goals? Because that affects what we talk about in the path you want to take. So I worked with a client recently, and he had a really interesting goal. He wanted to make $6 million a year. I said, why $6 million a year? Because I want to make $500,000 a month. I said, okay. So
was there any why behind that 500,000?
It was just this thing he had. It was an internal hurdle or an internal goal that he wanted to accomplish.
How old was he? And I don't want to interrupt that, but my mind goes crazy. How old was he?
He's relatively young. I'm going to go early 30s.
Early 30s.
Yeah. And
right,
we worked together for what amounted to almost 2 years. And he just embarked on the path that it's going to take him some time, but he might well hit his goal.
So were all three was it 3 businesses or 2 that you started?
I've started 2 from scratch, and okay. I've been a multi-unit franchisee, but that in and of itself was a separate company. So I've had 3 different companies.
So fair to say the first 2 you started weren't franchises?
The first one was not a franchise. The franchise was in the middle. And then the second one, or the third company, was from scratch.
Third company is the one you're on now?
No, I sold that in 21. So that was a software as a service reporting and analytics platform. And I don't know any code. I don't write a lick of code. But what I identified was a need in the marketplace. And there was a real gap that existed. And I said, I think we can build a better mousetrap. So that's what I did.
It's interesting. You said you don't know a lick of code. There's this saying, and it goes as such. It says, those who know how to do a skill particularly well will always work for someone who does not know how to do that skill particularly well. Anyway, let's talk about because I want people to find their way, find their path, know how to communicate, know how to persuade and get people to buy their business, buy their ideas. And you've mentioned, I noticed that you've done this, talk to people about franchises. And I want to talk about why that particular road that you've been coaching people on, and what are some of the perks of that? Because some people, I see a lot of people out there on LinkedIn. They're like, "Hey, let me help you get a franchise." And there's a reason they're doing that. There's a game for them, and I take it they're saying, "Hey, there's an easier path for you if you desire that." So, why do you think franchising remains like a powerful option for the entrepreneur?
Yep.
What are those three major things that you think why you're doing it?
First, let me qualify that. I coach people on learning about becoming self-sufficient through business ownership. That's not just franchises. You can do that through one of three ways. Start something from scratch, right?
Okay.
Which I've done twice. Invest in a franchise, or you can buy an existing business, right? So we talk about all of those three things in the work that I do with people.
And that's in the Entrepreneur Source.
Correct.
I'm glad you clarified that. And I got that. And I want to make sure the listeners know that it's many paths and that you're helping people to direct. And I want you to kind of talk about some of your processes that would help them and leave them with some tips. But talk about the whole franchise things. I've been seeing a lot on LinkedIn. So why?
It's still a powerful option for people in large part because of a few different things, right? Structure. Part of the reason franchises do well is they have that structure I alluded to earlier, right? Think of it as a set of guardrails. When you build something from scratch, you don't have guardrails. It's just greenfield, right? And that's good and that's bad. Franchises have guardrails, and they like you to work within those guardrails, within that structure, within those standard operating procedures. Not to mention all of the support, right? As I mentioned earlier, you've got typically you have a marketing team or an ops team at a corporate level that supports you. That takes so much work off of a business owner's plate because they don't have to worry about that. They can focus on working on or in the business if they want to. And for a lot of people, that structure is very helpful. What I have found too is the most successful franchisees embrace that structure. And guardrails are a good analogy because there's still plenty of room for you to personalize it and make it your own, make it local in terms of flavor, whatever that might be. But there's still guardrails there. And those guardrails exist for a reason because they have proven, if you stay within them, that you tend to have a higher degree of success.
So let's stay on that. Entrepreneurship, freedom. I got to go out there, and as the young kids say, I got to go get my bag, get my money, and I don't want the control factor of someone over me. Where I believe in systems, and I believe that systems make people rich, whether you're trading, entrepreneurship, working in a certain company. What's your system? What's your sales system? Do you think the franchisee, do they still get to experience that freedom, or do you think that the word franchise scares certain people that they feel that they're truly wouldn't have the freedom or the big boss, the big CEO?
I think there's some misconceptions in there too around franchising. First of all, there's a corporate CEO at the franchisor level, but there's a very clear differentiation and delineation between their role and yours as the business owner. And in fact, the franchisor doesn't want you as an employee. That's not what they're there for. So I think that there's plenty of room to make it your own. In most franchises, you're going to have to build a team. It might be a big team. It might be a small team. It might be multiple markets. It might be multiple locations, but you'll still get to it's still very much your business, and you're going to make the decisions in that business. Very rarely do you run into circumstances where you have to worry about corporate's approval per se.
How do you coach people on finding their path, whether it's a franchise, whether they take the entrepreneurial path? What are some of the things that you look for and say to guide that person to make a good decision for his or her life?
When we get to the point where we start to look at possibilities, and just to give you a little line of sight towards the journey that we go on with clients, we spend a lot of time on that goal setting work. And the goal setting work is critical because we can't aim at something if we don't know where we're aiming, first of all. So we spend a lot of time on really nailing down those goals. What are their income goals? What are their lifestyle goals? And lifestyle is increasingly important. And really, depending upon a lot of times people's age, those lifestyle goals become more important as you get older. Maybe you want to spend more time with your kids or grandkids, or you want to find something to kind of edge into semi-retirement. So everybody's goals are a little bit different, but they're critical from the standpoint of the path forward. Once those goals are done, we have those established, we start to look at different possibilities on how to do that. What different paths of business ownership might help you accomplish those goals? And we don't look at anything that won't help you accomplish them or get you on the path to accomplishing them. So, sorry, I got a little off track there and I forgot your question, your original question.
What was saying, like, how are you directing them in down to that, what do you do to help them get something that aligns with them? So it's sometimes things are a money grab, and the money grab doesn't last. Sometimes people have passions.
So when we get to the point where we start to align and we look at and we evaluate different possibilities, there's really three different facets that I like to look at with them. One is a very objective angle, and does it accomplish their goals, or will it help them accomplish their goals? Number one. Number two is their skills and abilities. The skills and abilities they already have. Are they a good leader? Are they a good communicator? Are they a good salesperson? Are they any of these skills that people have accumulated over time? How do those skills align with that business? Do those skills help you in that business? Do those skills fight with that business? Right. And then the third facet is really an emotional one. How do you feel about it? Does it excite you? Is it something that you think you would enjoy being involved in? And again, a lot of times people lose sight of when they're working in a business versus on a business. Working in the business means you're doing some of those things. Working on the business means you're managing the business, you're managing the team, you're managing marketing, sales, whatever that might be. So they're two very different things, but there needs to be a little bit of emotion there. You need to be excited about that.
Is there anyone that you can think of that you've helped that has called you back that you feel good about? Because when I've talked to you, you seem you're a person very orderly fashion, but you got a heart, you got a big heart, and seem to be a caring person. Is there anyone who's contacted you or that you're working with now that you just love what they're doing? Or
I had a call with him just Wednesday, and his name is Tim, and I worked with him on for a number of months, and he said he said to me, he said, there are times when I want to hug you, and there's times when I want to hunt you down, but he was.
Why would he want to hunt you down?
He's early on. He's early on in his company, and he's like any company, there's growing pains. Building a business isn't easy, but we'll come to that. But he and then I talked to him again on Wednesday, and he was just so grateful. He said, Parnell, this is my calling, and I wouldn't have found it without you. And I mean, I just kind of melted a little bit inside. I was like, wow. And he said, I never would have found this. I never would have been able to get here. You helped me get through so many hurdles and past so many fears for me to get here today. And it was just very touching. And it was just one of those days where you finish the day and you say, hey, I did something right.
That's awesome. So let's talk about, like, on that sales end. I had a few things that I wanted to touch. You're talking about, people who, the one guy wanted to make 500,000, the one guy, Tim, who said he wants to hug you. I love to hear stories like that. I love seeing whether someone's an entrepreneur, whether someone's a seller on the rise, change their legacy, take a legacy from good to great, nothing to something, great to phenomenal. So when I hear that, now I hear you take on clients, and I want to know, let's talk about the sales aspect within what you do to win people to take your services first. And then I want to talk about what do you think some of the sales skills that would help them in entrepreneurship. And so let's talk about how you coach clients, and how you're winning them over to join forces and allowing you to take them to that next level. What is that process that you're doing from, take me down from like outreach to finding a fit to, hey, let's work together. What does that sales process look like?
On my side, my outreach is multifaceted. I have a fair amount of outreach on LinkedIn. Obviously, it's a great place to find folks in corporate America. I also have some outreach done via some good old fashioned resumes, people that have resumes online and such, and I'll make some outreach there. And typically what I like to do is just is set up an introductory phone call. There's no charge to people for my coaching time at any point in time. And we talk about where they are in their career. We talk about whether or not they feel like, in a year or 3 or 5 years, if they can accomplish the goals that they have in front of them. And if the answer to that is no, it's a simple question. Would you like to learn about ways that maybe you can? Right? It's as simple as that. I tell folks I treat my coaching very much kind of like a college class. We're going to do some work together. We're going to try and identify what those goals are. We're going to explore different ways to do that. Do it in a safe space where you can learn. I firmly believe that if people are not worried about making decisions, they're more focused on the learning. If everybody's thinking about making a decision, I think it inhibits their ability to learn. And I want people to come in and learn. I want them to see, well, what is it like to run a business day in and day out? What is that business model? Is it an eat what you kill? Is it a recurring revenue model? Is this a business I could pass on? You want to talk about legacy? There's folks I work with that are multi-generational, and dad's going to make the majority of the investment. Son's going to run the business. Well, that's a legacy business now.
Are you met with a lot of resistance out there? I mean, you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and one cool thing is you talk about, your coaching time with them is free. So I'm trying to figure out how do you get them to get on the phone? Do you lead with that, or what's that process like, and what is their acceptance or resistance level when you have that first encounter?
I think it's like anything, a cold outreach from anybody on LinkedIn, everybody's skeptical. And understandably so. I'm the same way, right? What are you selling? How much is it going to cost? And I think a lot of people, when they read my recommendations on LinkedIn and they see the people in the comments, even some people that ultimately decided not to go into entrepreneurship, but they went through the journey, they learned a lot, and they went back to into the corporate world just so much more informed and so much more knowledgeable. And at some point, maybe they'll feel like, now I want to try this. So it's not always the right time. I'm not always the right coach at the right time, and that's fine. But typical, skepticism in terms of that outreach. And that's why, I provide them with a link, let them go listen to a little video I put together where I talk about what I do and how I do it. And
so let's talk about that. Like, cause you have been able to get on the phone and build relationships and help people become successful. So when they're in your LinkedIn and they're like, hey, thanks, but no thanks, Parnell, or what is this? What typically is that follow-up? Is it another LinkedIn follow-up, and would you give them to say, break down that resistance a little bit?
In some cases, it kind of depends on the hardness of the no. If they're abrasive with their response, then I'm not going to bother them. Typically, I will only follow up once with them. That's just not my nature. I'm not going to push somebody. You got to want to learn. If you don't want to learn, then maybe it's not the right time, and that's perfectly fine. So I don't really push a lot when I get an initial no. I'll get questions. Well, how does it work? And then I'll provide them with a response on what I do, how I work, no cost. Here's a link to review some of my material. Take a look at it. If you want to move forward, it's great. If not, that's fine.
Do you find that like asking, that one time, do you have a pretty good ratio of people at least taking a phone call?
I think that over the years, in large part because of my recommendations, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I've got a lot of connections on LinkedIn. I think people feel more comfortable because they're like, wait, if there was something wrong or something sketchy here, there'd be more comments on this. And, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an introductory phone call. It's a 15 to 20 minute phone call or Zoom. Make your own decision at that point.
Do you get a lot of your business come from referrals?
Increasingly, yes. Yeah. And those to me are the greatest compliment. I've had referrals from people that I've helped get into business ownership. I've had referrals from people that decided not to. And that just says to me that they got a lot of value out of the work that we did together, and value enough to say, hey, if you're even thinking about this, go talk to Parnell.
What's interesting is I the people I've coached, and me having to sell myself, I run into some harsh opposition in terms of, being in the digital marketing space, the SaaS space. People are getting called left and right. They've been ripped off. They're jaded. They're hurt. So, you call them, and usually if it's a call or even an email, what I do, Parnell, is I have the in my sales system the ask 3 times, because I think that ask, empathize, ask, and then people, like you said, if someone doesn't want the help, then I pray that their eyes are open, and because sometimes you can be exactly what they need, or not what they need, but you give them some good wisdom to lift them off and send them on their way to a better path. You're that recalibration. But I'll tell people, hey, if you ask a person how they're doing, they'll usually say fine. But if you say, really, you pause there, you doing okay? Yeah, I'm good. It's just that such and such happened. Well, how are you doing, man? Give me the real. Then on that third one, they're spilling the beans. So it's kind of like when you ask somebody, what are you looking to accomplish? Oh, nothing. I'm fine. Oh, well, then I say, come back. You know what? That's cool. I see that you've accomplished this, and that. I wanted to talk to you about, do you ever keep your options open to understand or to learn this that could even help you in what you're even doing now, or whatever that is? So I try to tell people, ask 3 times and see what they do after that.
I like that. I maybe I'll modify some of my outreach. I ask people very simply, are you on the path to accomplishing your income, lifestyle, and wealth building goals? And doing what you're doing now, will you accomplish that? And if the answer to that question is yes, and they feel good about that, and they want to learn more, fine. If they don't, then it's just a simple question. Would you like to maybe learn about a way you could? It's that simple.
Have you what do you feel about your personal brand? Do you do anything for personal branding besides just your LinkedIn recommendations?
I do increasingly, and in part because like I said, I've been blessed enough to have done what I coach. There are a lot of people who coach who haven't had that experience. That doesn't mean they're not great coaches. I just come at this from a very different perspective, right? And so part of my coaching is my experience. Part of my coaching is the fact that I've built, 2 from scratch and been a multi-unit franchisee. And I think that some people, when they work with a coach, have a different respect for that coach because they've been there. So like I said, it doesn't make me any better than any other coach. It just gives me a different perspective. So,
well, having said that, when you talk about one of your businesses is in the tech, and you have like this CTO label within your title. And so let's talk about some differentiators. Let's talk about some of that AI. So you got artificial intelligence, automation, all these trending topics on social media about it. It's flooding the market. And how do you see emerging technology impacting like franchise models and entrepreneurs in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think for those of us that are older than 40 or so years old, we've been, you want to talk about changes in the world. The first one was the internet, and the second one's AI. How is it going to affect franchising? I did a podcast on this the other day, and the next thing we're going to see in AI, a lot of people think, is what's called agentic AI. And most people will tell you that a year from now, agentic AI is going to make ChatGPT look like a calculator.
And it's called agentic?
Agentic. Essentially what it is agents that are automated, that are built from a series of different tools that have the ability to reason and act. So as it relates to the franchise world, I think it's going to have a huge impact in the franchise world. It already is. The challenge in the franchise world is going to be management and control of that AI. You've got a lot of franchisors who, quite frankly, just don't know where to start with AI. And then you've got franchisees, maybe who are a little bit more leading edge and they're experimenting with AI. And that's going to create some challenges, or could create challenges, for the franchisor in the organization. But it from the standpoint of what it can do, it's going to affect CRM tools. It's going to affect data analytics. I read somewhere that 95% of customer behavior is now, or you can predict customer behavior to 95% degree of confidence using AI, which is far better than we've been able to in the past. Customer experience, the impact on personalization, everything at the customer experience level. The onboarding side for franchisees, again, is going to be hugely impacted by AI, learning management tools, a variety of different things. So it's going to change the franchise world. And all I can say is, don't get left behind on this train. This is going to be too impactful a train going forward.
So when we think about AI, let's stay on that. Think about branding. We talked about that just before the AI. I think that all comes into a part. I don't think enough people, say a seller who works for a company, I don't think salesmen, VPs, CROs, and people brand themselves enough even within their organization. I think it would be powerful. You can make connections, network, and bring in referrals. If you're out there, if you have a voice and you're an authority, that's what I think. Like, sellers need to just really sleep on that. They just depend on the company so much they live off of the company's branding, and they never develop their own branding within the company. They don't become an entrepreneur. I think every seller should have an entrepreneurial mindset. Franchisees, they get to live off of the big brand.
Right.
My company markets some huge franchises. So what do you think about the role of if someone does go the role of not their own company, but a franchisee, how important is branding, doing your own social media, TikTok, using AI tools to help yourself post and create and write blogs on your own out as a voice within the franchisee? What do you think?
No, it's a great question, right? And in that world, it's very much about that local presence and building not only your brand or your franchise, but also yourself locally. I forgot what it was. I just finished a book on this about branding yourself. But it's all about.
If you think of that book, let me know.
I'll send you a note.
Books that you recommend, because I want the audience to know what
it is. It's all about branding yourself. It's more and more and more important, because people want to see you as the face of that location or that franchise. It's particularly in your local market, critically important. So, and AI can help you do that. There are countless tools to help you modify, generate, post, repost, all kinds of content. And I think that, increasingly we're going to see a lot more of that. So
when people go off thinking about brand, I think brand opens up doors for people to call you. I think life is much easier when you are giving value, which is a part of brand, which I feel like it attracts people. You give, and it'll be given back unto you. But there's still those points where you have to convince, sell, persuade someone to choose you. What are some of the selling qualities that someone who wants to go into franchisee, do they have to sell themselves to a franchisor to accept me? Or when they become the franchisee, do they have to have boots on the ground and make sales to local vendors? Or what are some of those sales that have to be made? Because some people say, hey, I don't like selling, I just want to own. But how much selling is involved?
Well, the franchise process is an awarded process. And a lot of times people forget. They think I'll walk in the door with money and I'll just go ahead and buy this franchise. Well, it doesn't work that way, because the franchisor is evaluating you as much as you're evaluating them. And as I mentioned earlier, if you don't work well within guidelines, that franchisor might not want you as part of that organization, because you might be a bigger headache than you're worth. So I don't know that it's selling as much as I think it's just being who you are, and just don't be afraid of who you are. Don't be afraid of being, I hate to say being judged, but just be yourself, from the standpoint of selling.
I like that. Don't be afraid of being judged. I think I have this saying, and it's a core belief of mine at Legacy Connect, is people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. I also believe that people, I personally, being a sales coach, I don't like having to sell someone. That's why I say connect. And build a relationship, make someone feel comfortable, build trust. So that's different from selling. Those take different qualities, and that's why I believe in the 4 social styles: amiable, expressive, driver, analytical, and taking a particular path to talk to them and treat them the way they want to be treated. They feel more comfortable. And when you do that, they start opening up. They go from closed to being candid. And they guess what? They do like you. Yes, people can. Tell me if you agree with this. People will buy even if they don't like you. They just may need it. I went and bought a truck from a Mercedes dealer. I traded in my truck, my Mercedes Benz, when I moved from LA to Austin, Texas, because I wanted to fit in with the Texans. They were not in 2020.
Gotta have a truck.
They weren't having us Californians driving up the price, right? And I go to this dealership, and this guy, I'm going to a Mercedes dealership to get a truck. That was weird. It was a Ram 1500. I like it though. And they left me sitting there for 8 hours, but I like that particular truck so much after I was looking all around for weeks for the perfect truck. I'm like, this is Mercedes-Benz. I know what it's like to get a Mercedes. There's this, they'll bring you some food. They'll do that white glove concierge service. And it started like that. But once they had knew that I was really engaged and really wanted that truck, that customer service and that love was lost. It's like they had me, if you will. But I still bought. I say all that to say that I bought. But I'm not going to go to that Mercedes place again, because I am going to go get the cool Mercedes again. I'll keep my truck, but I think they love me enough here that now I can get my Mercedes and drive around the neighborhood. They still love your boy T-Rev. No, but I say all that to say that people will buy from you even if they don't like you, but I think that they'll buy more and keep on buying, if you will, from you if they do like you, if they do appreciate you. And I think that's like where the foundational, the crux that you have to live on and the bridge you have to live on is the art of connecting. Because then you sit there, you talk with someone and you said, don't worry about being judged. Not everything's a fit. I know if I wanted a franchise and I really want this, work on this franchise, that person will see that, you know what? They have an appreciation, they have a work ethic, and there's something about them that I like. One of the things I talk about in my sales is like, when you meet someone, Parnell, you probably subconsciously did this to me, and I subconsciously did it to you. There's 7 questions over everyone's head when they come and meet you. 7 questions that exist. And it's like, one is, who are you? Who is your company? So there's the credibility, because we're operating when we meet people in the croc brain, and it's the lowest part of our brain, fight or flight. That's what we're in. Or can I accept them? Who are you? And what do we have in common? Is one of them. Is there anything in common? The more you're like someone, the more they open up and trust you. Are you my type of person? Do you show up on time? Do you dress nice? Was there something bright about you? Are you always smiling? So that people are looking at those things, then they want to know what your motive is. So it's okay to say, hey, I want to make $500,000 a month. Can you get me there? Person knowing, okay, I know what this person's motive is. What's your motive? What's the agenda? What are we going to talk about today? And they want to know what's in it for them. So that, I don't know if I hit all 7, but I just know that those things exist. And if you can answer those questions without faking it and being genuine and just being yourself, then you'll notice there'll be an open conversation and connection. And even if there's not a fit between the business goals and what you can provide between the two people, this relationship is built. Then there's these referrals, or, you know what, you should go here. I thought of you. I connected with you and I liked you so much. Even though we weren't a fit, my friend over here, this business over here. That's just my mentality.
Very much so. And even when I work with people, I'm like, look, I'm not here to be your best friend. But during the course of our coaching, I will challenge you. I will ask you to look inward. And in particular, one of the things I talk a lot about is getting outside of a comfort zone. So many of us have comfort zones, and a lot of us are very afraid to get outside that comfort zone. But I want you outside of that, because when you get outside that comfort zone, right, that's when you start to learn. That's when you start to grow. But it's uncomfortable, right? you become very self-conscious. You become very susceptible to people's, to their judgments, to any number of different things. You got to get outside of that in order to learn and grow.
Yeah. And I don't know why people don't get that. If you've ever lifted weights or ran cross country or do any type of exercise,
there you go.
I know everybody who I used to work out with in the gym. You notice I said used to work out. I got to get back in the gym. If you weren't kind of sore, if you weren't sore the next day, and I'm not talking the awful where you can't walk around. I
know
hate that type of soreness.
Yep.
You feel you didn't get a workout. You feel you didn't grow because the muscle has to break down and all that lactic acid and all this stuff. You have to feel that. You're like, oh, I got to go work. I'm going to have a pump, So yeah, but hey, we're going to wrap this up. Let's do a fire round. I got 3 more minutes with you here. Let's do a fire round of questions. Let's see what you think of this. Okay.
Fire away.
What's one piece of advice you wish you'd learned earlier in life than you learned recently?
Don't be so afraid. Just go for it. You just do it. Just go for it. Don't be stupid. Don't be crazy, but do it. Go for it. Take one step. Well, just one. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's an email. Take one step. Somebody said to me, if you make 1% change every day for a year, you will have changed the course of your life 37x. One change. 1% change every day because it compounds.
I like that one. Run with that one, people. Okay. What is one tool or app that revolutionizes how you work?
Of late, it's got to be ChatGPT. It has just changed so much mundane work and admin work and just allowed me to be able to do more things faster.
I told my 16-year-old last time, like, come use ChatGPT with me. He's like, what is this? He's like, I've heard of it. I said, no, we're using it today then. Okay. As you look to the future, what excites you most about the world of franchising and entrepreneurship? What legacy do you want your coaching to leave on the next generation of business owners?
My hope, T-Rev, is that through the people that I work with that do decide to go into business ownership, that 5-10 years down the road, they look back and they are so happy with the changes that they've made. They control their destiny. Nobody else does. They do. Not some boss or faceless person at corporate America. They control it. And I want them to stop them when they talk to their friends and their family and say, you know what? Just like my guy, Tim, that I told you about, I would never have gotten here if Parnell hadn't helped me.
Love it. Love it. Last one. If you could leave our listeners with just one piece of wisdom about taking control of their careers, stepping into a new path of entrepreneurship, what would be that one nugget of wisdom?
Just like I said earlier, do one thing, just one. Make the phone call, set an appointment, take an email, one step, just one. That's all.
I love it. Don't be afraid. Take one step. Do one thing, something new, one thing, grow one piece, 1% each day. You'll change your life by 37x. And learn this flipping ChatGPT. And what was the other thing that's coming out?
Agentic AI.
Agentic AI. I'm going to repeat that one when we close this. So I have a new phrase. Have you heard about the agentic AI? I like to appear smart. Thank you, Parnell. It's been great. I love your name by the way, Parnell. I don't meet a lot of Parnells.
No, there aren't many. So I always say it was kind of a pain in the ass to grow up with. Sorry if I shouldn't use that phrase on because when you're younger, it's about being like everybody, and as you get older, it turned into a real advantage in the professional world. Because when I call somebody, hey, it's Parnell, I don't have to worry about surname.
Parnell. All right, my friend. Well, everyone, that was Parnell, and I'd love to have you back, Parnell. Please invite me on your podcast. And what's your podcast, Parnell?
Called The Pivot Point.
Parnell has The Pivot Point. Call him up. Accept his LinkedIn invite. You see how relaxed he is. He's not going to force you, but he is going to ask you 3 times from now on. All right, everybody. We'll see you. Let's go. Let's grow. Let's keep connecting so we can collect good.
Thanks, T-Rev.
Thank you.
Changer. I want to be what you meant to be. It's never too late. That timely quote challenged me when I couldn't take. Deferred hopes and dreams in my head turning gray. And God told me, tell him about the first 48.